Greetings, everyone. This is Jeff Wilkerson, Professor of Physics at Luther College, bringing you the next in our series of what to look for in the night sky. We're talking about the week of September 9th this time around. And I look at this, those of you, so let's start there. Those of you who've been watching these regularly since I started doing them, I think it's over 3 years ago now. First of all, your stamina is to be applauded. You've got the stamina of an ultra-marathoner to stick with it all of these years as I repeat myself and show other things. But you know that when I started doing these, I just wrote on the board as we talked. And then as I'm writing and I'm trying to erase and fix problems as they're going up there, it was pretty messy. So I tried to start doing, I did a couple of years ago, I stopped that practice and I decided to write on the board in advance to save my terrible handwriting as I'm writing on the fly. Now, my handwriting is still terrible, and we still end up with things like today, where we have what I like to refer to affectionately as the board of doom. Too much information, crammed in too many things in too many places. But let's try to walk through it, okay? The moon starts the week a little over a third full. I don't know, it's written up there someplace. There it is. The moon is just over a third full as we start the week this week. And it gets dark. As it's getting dark, you'll see this third full moon glowing in Scorpius at the beginning of the week. So on the evening of the 9th, the very first evening we're talking about right now, you can find the moon here. So we like to think of Scorpius, the head of Scorpius. I like to think, other people probably like to think of it differently, but I like to think of big bright orange Antares, rival of Mars, Antares. Here, marking the head of Scorpius with these three bright stars, Beta, Delta, and Pi Scorpii here. 2.6 magnitude, 2.3 magnitude, and 2.9 magnitude. Any star that's brighter than third magnitude, and remember this counts backwards, any star that's brighter than third magnitude is pretty bright and easy to see. So this is a brilliant pattern. Now, Rho, for me, pops out pretty well. Any star that's brighter than fourth magnitude is still relatively easy to see. By the time we get to fifth magnitude, you need pretty dark skies to be able to see it. This will wash out for some people, also because we're starting to get a little bit south. So if you live far enough north, like I do, you might be having to look close enough to the southern horizon that you need a pretty good southern horizon to see Rho down here at 3.9, noticeably fainter than these other three stars. So we see these three stars that mark the head of Scorpius, like that from Antares. But Rho, sometimes you get added in there as that fourth star that marks the head of Scorpius. Now, this region of sky, we're going to use it to find a few other things. So the moon, right now, let's start there. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm getting excited. What to talk about these? We've talked about so many globular clusters this summer. We're going to talk about more here. Why not? Why not? But the moon is right next to Pi. And it's not going to occult Pi for me. I know it's going to slide by to the north, and I think that probably means that it's going to slide by to the north for just about everybody. But I didn't go look to see if there were parts of the world where we might see an occultation. But Pi is going to be, this night of the 9th, the third full moon is going to be very close to Pi, really close. It'll be a beautiful, beautiful pairing right there to go out and check out. So that's the first thing we want to do. Now, while we're here, while we're looking at Scorpius, and while the moon's not too big and bright yet, it's going to get big and bright as the week goes on. By the end of the week, it's over 90% full. So it's going to get big and bright. But while we're here at the beginning of the week, before it's gotten there, let's take advantage of it and let's find some good deep sky objects in the area. Next to Antares, we've seen M4 many times over the course of these short films. M4 is a big, sprawling globular cluster that looks almost like an open star cluster at some times. Remember, globular star clusters have 500,000 stars, whereas open star clusters maybe 500 stars, and they're more spread out, these opens, and you see them, they're closer to us. These generally look like big, bright knots of stars, big globs of stars. And so, just 1 1/3 degrees. Your finger at arm's length is 1 degree. 1 1/3 degrees from Antares is M4, this big sprawling open star cluster. NGC 6144 is a globular star cluster that's even closer, about 1/2 degree from Antares, and it's a hard one to see. But so close, if you see something right on top of Antares in your telescope field of view as a globular star cluster, and it doesn't look big and sprawling where you can see the individual stars, you're probably looking at NGC 6144. Now on up this direction toward Beta And between beta and delta here is M80. And M80 is a sort of classic. These look different than what a lot of the globular star clusters. Big and sprawling and faint. This one's faint, this one's bright, but big and sprawling. M80 looks more like what I think of when I see a globular star cluster, a tight knot of stars. It's relatively bright and not too big. And it's out this direction in the head of Scorpius. Now, if you want another big, loose, sprawling globular star cluster that can look more like an open star cluster, and a challenge for you, and I'm sure we haven't talked about this one before, go from Antares and split pi and delta, and then go that same distance again. Just go a straight line, and you're in the heart of Libra now. So you're over in the stars of Libra, and you've got NGC 5897 as a globular star cluster. The Libra stars are up here someplace. See, I'm trying not to write while I'm talking on the board, but I can't help myself. I just can't help myself. I try not to get distracted and tell side stories while we're talking about what's going to be in the night sky, but oh well, these things happen. And so you've got, right in the heart of Libra, the two bright stars of Libra up there, you're going to find NGC 5897 as another loose globular cluster. Now, if it dropped the other direction, let's first of all, let's talk about Sigma. We can't talk about the heart of Scorpius. We talk about Sigma every time. Sigma is this star that's just to the west of Antares. So there's a relatively bright star, not as bright as these other stars, but a relatively bright star that lies just to the west of Antares. And it is a beautiful binary star, two stars separated by 20 arc seconds. If that's your finger at arm's length is 1 degree, divided into 60 parts, and that's an arc minute. And if you divide each of those arc minutes again by 60, it's an arc second. And but 20 arc seconds, any small telescope will separate those, and it'll look very nice. So it's a great binary star. There's more there, but we'll not talk about that right now. Let's drop down. You go from pi to rho, and you drop that down, that distance down again, and there's a fourth magnitude star. But we're getting pretty far south now. For those of us who live well up into the northern hemisphere, this is a good challenge to test your southern horizon and how dark your skies are to the south. Chi and Lupus, the Lupus star of Chi. We have Lepus and Lupus coming up here in the sky. We're talking about Lupus right now. And the Chi star is about the same distance. Go from Pi Scorpii to Rho Scorpii, then you drop to Chi Lupi as a fourth magnitude star. Go see if you can find it, and you will have made your, maybe, I don't know what you've done before, but maybe you've made your first observation of the constellation Lupus. Fantastic. If you take that same distance again and drop down, but swing back to the west, so you go bonk, bonk, like that, you come to Eta Lupi, and that is a 3.4 magnitude star. Brighter, but harder to see for those of us in the north because you're so close to the horizon now. You're skimming the southern horizon right now, especially this time of year. We should have done this observation a little bit earlier in the year when this whole region was a little bit higher. You got to go right as it gets dark. So as soon as you got good darkness, go make this observation. Eta is another beautiful binary star, another beautiful pair of stars that are separated by 15 arc seconds. So easily separated, 20 arc seconds and 15 arc seconds. Most of you with any small telescope could probably easily do anything that's 3 or 4 arc seconds, and maybe 5. This will be a little bit harder because of the turbulence of the atmosphere looking that far south for most of us. Anyway, if you live in the south, it's not. This is a great object and easy for you to do. But a lot of my viewers live up here. I live in the central part of the United States. I live at latitude 43 degrees north. And so I know I have a lot of people who watch these things who are somewhere around those mid-northern latitudes as well. And we have some people who aren't. And so the people who live to the south could have a much better chance of seeing Eta, this beautiful binary star down there. By the 15th and the 16th, so we get to a week later, basically, the moon will be over 90% full, and it will be just to the west, of a few degrees to the west of Deneb Algadi, the tail of the goat. We use Deneb Algadi a lot because planets and stuff slide by there, but you should be able to see that it's a nice bright star. A good pairing for you on the evening of the 15th or the morning of the 16th. By the time the moon's at 90% full, it's up almost all night for you to look at. So that's the main thing we're looking at this week. But let's do a look at the planets. We've been tracking the planets. Venus is in the evening sky. I'm watching it every evening. I've had a good run of clear skies. And so we talked about this last week. Venus is glowing nicely in the western horizon right now after sunset. So you go out after sunset, enjoy a good crisp fall evening, unless you're way south and it's a good crisp spring evening. But enjoy a good crisp fall evening if you're in the north, and watch the Venus glowing on the western horizon in the orange of the sunset. So Venus is there. We've been tracking Saturn. Saturn is still in retrograde motion. It's still moving west against the background stars. We've been measuring against Phi and Chi Aquarii, the Aquarius stars. It starts the week about 1 2/3 degrees from Chi, and it'll end the week about 2 degrees. So if you pay attention to it, that's enough motion to be able to see Saturn tracking to the east. Jupiter's in prograde motion. Saturn rises as it gets dark. So now you get outside, it's getting dark, look to the east, and you'll see Saturn rising in the darkness to the east. Jupiter doesn't come up until maybe sometime between 11 and midnight. Okay, 11:30, it's iffy at the beginning of the week. By the end of the week, you ought to be able to see it at 11:30 or so. And so sometime between 11 and midnight, Jupiter ought to rise for you. And Jupiter is sitting next to a star that in some catalogs would be called 109 Tauri. It's a star in Taurus. That's a Flamsteed-Bayer number. And so that's one star catalog. So there's a star there. It's a 5th magnitude star, right on the edge of naked eye visibility for many of us, but probably visible for a lot of us, and certainly visible in binoculars. Jupiter starts 1 degree to the west, but Jupiter's still moving to the east in prograde motion against the background stars. By the end of the week, it's cut that distance in half. It's half a degree. And that tells us next week it's going to be right on top of this star. So this is something for us to watch. This is a nice pairing with a relatively bright star. Not a big bright star, but a relatively bright and easy to see star. So Jupiter's closing that gap. Spend this week observing Jupiter if you get a chance sometime around midnight. You see Jupiter closing in on 109 Tauri, and continue to track it next week. And watch it close that distance even more. That's what we got for you this week. We got a lot of stuff here in Scorpius, Lupus, and Libra, and we got the planets Saturn and Jupiter there that we're tracking against the background stars, and it should be a good week. So as always, everybody, thanks for watching, and we hope you have a great week ahead.